Mr. Lentz is going to talk about Andrew Luck and his contract for a little bit.
This crazy contract that he just got. Anyone that knows me know I'm a former player, so I will always be for an athlete getting his money over everything else. You got to get that money. People talk about loyalty in sports to the organizations. There is no loyalty. It is a business. Get your money where you can. However, this money that Andrew Luck just got, I feel like it is going to kill the Colts in the long run as far as their team success and sustainability, because I feel like they haven't learned anything from the Peyton Manning era. Yeah, they were good. They were good for a long time. Some people are okay with, getting 10 wins yearly, which is a really good feat to get, but they were in a bad division for pretty much that entire time, the Colts. There weren't any. They had, I think it was like 2 or 3 years where the Titans were actually good, but besides that, majority of the teams in that division were 500 and below. Now you look at now, I feel like they're trying to follow that same model as having a good quarterback, which Luck is a good quarterback, but now you got to look at the division is getting better. The Texans have had a top 5 defense for the last few years. The Jaguars are getting a lot better. You look at the young talent that's on there. It's still the Jaguars, but there's a lot of young talent that they can get. If Gus Bradley can ring them in, they'll be okay. And then you look at the Titans, really young team. They look like they're starting to build up on offense. On offense, they look like they have a very young nucleus that can be really. If Green Beckham can get it together, Marcus Mariota can get it together, that team could be something formidable for the time coming. So I think that the Colts right now, I feel like they put way too much money into Andrew Luck. I understand that most people feel like you have to lock up a franchise type quarterback, but looking at his numbers, he hasn't been that top tier, top 5 quarterback that you would think would get that type of money. So to me, I feel like Andrew Luck getting all this money is going to be bad for the Colts. They're not going to be able to build that offensive line. They're not going to build up that defense around him because he's given too much money. And that's how I feel about it. That's why I feel like it's bad for the Colts.
Jarvis, what's your thoughts?
I agree with Lynch that definitely got. I am gonna go with the money, but I don't blame the Colts for doing it. Of course, like everybody's been saying, it's hard to find a proven franchise quarterback, and I agree with what you said, Lance. They're just following a model that works for them, and you got to think of it from the team standpoint. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. No, they're not a team that you're like, oh my gosh, they're a Super Bowl contender every year. But in that AFC, what is it, AFC South that they're in? The AFC South? Yeah. Whatever division they're in.
The South, man.
I don't remember the names of the division.
South, man.
AFC
It's
South.
The South. Come on, man.
The thing is, if you say AFC South, who Titans, you're thinking if I got Andrew Luck, I got a better shot at squeaking into the playoffs if I have to, and they're banking on that. Is it wise? No. But at the point where they have no real other options, and it looks like they don't really have any long-term plans for how they want to set their team up to be more successful, they're just trying to stay above the line right now. And I think what they're doing is what they think is in their best interest. But I do agree with you 100%. Down the line, it's going to come to bite them in the butt. They're going to hope that Andrew Luck is remnant of Peyton Manning and willing to, restructure his deal later on. I don't think he will. I think he'll keep his money, he'll get in a bad situation, and in a couple of years it'll be the Jaguars division.
I agree. And I was going to actually end up saying that same thing. Right now, Jacksonville's got a pretty young team. They're continuing to put pieces together and spending money right now on veterans. And when those contracts expire, they'll have a pretty good team of youngsters around them. Before we get to that, though, I just want to just quickly talk about the Colts and echo what Lynch said in a lot of ways. Right now, you look around the league, we've got quarterbacks that are getting paid really good money, and there's a few of them that have good teams around him and keep good teams around him. As soon as the Ravens signed Flacco to his contract, and you can debate whether or not he was worth the money or not, I don't really think it matters when you look at the dynamic of what it did to the rest of the team. They ended up having to cut Anquan Boldin and other veterans and weren't able to go out and chase guys, and then swung and missed on a left tackle the next year in free agency. But in trying to lock up Flacco and then Eugene Monroe, they messed around and didn't have money for a lot of other things. They had to get Dumerville on a discount, things like that. Teams aren't that creative. We're going to end up having to see what happens with Seattle now that they've given Russell Wilson that kind of money, because the rest of his teammates are looking. Same thing with Jay Cutler and the Bears. They ended up having to let go of some veterans. I don't know if they would have been very good regardless, because they were kind of on the way down beforehand. But you look around the league at all these teams that are giving these big quarterbacks, and then the next 2 years, how many contracts they're letting go of. Think about this. The Colts, if we're going to be perfectly honest, aren't very deep at many positions. Their offensive line is not good. I love Frank Gore, but they have issues in the run game. The run game just isn't there. They've got some holes on defense, so on and so forth. So we're already talking about a team that has more questions than answers, giving up a lot of their salary flexibility for a quarterback that got beat to hell last year. I mean, even when he was in a game, he wasn't healthy. And they can't put money towards protecting him like a lot of teams would. A lot of teams that had an asset that they feel like is their future, like Andrew Luck, would have gone out and put money into, getting in some veteran offensive linemen, trying to, spend draft picks, so on and so forth. And I think they did draft some linemen, but, they're not going to go after the top right guard or left tackle in free agency to try to help keep Andrew Luck upright. And now they can't afford to. So they have to really focus on making sure they hit home runs every time they draft an offensive lineman now, because they won't be able to afford to go get one if they mess up. I think that hurts them in two ways. Now their draft has to go to how do we keep Andrew Luck alive and with weapons, as opposed to what do we do to better our team. And also they don't have the money to try to bring in guys they can't get. Turney, you have any thoughts? You I think the only Colts fan we got here.
Yeah. So let me just put this out here. Full disclosure, I'm a Colts fan. Been a Colts fan since 1996 when we almost stunned Pittsburgh in the AFC Championship game. So let me put that out there. Now, one thing I didn't hear y'all mention, I could have missed it. The market sets what the next good quarterback makes. So us paying Luck was somewhat a product of that. We almost had to do it because the market had been set, for previous quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers, all of them. They had been paid, so now it was Luck's turn. Russell Wilson, all of them had to get paid, so that's cool. I'll point out, though, that the way that we are building our team is the way that we've always built the team. We tried to get a stud quarterback, and we had that with 18, and we've always built on the fringes around him and not really invest in a lot of depth. So when you can look at the Colts now, look at the Colts then, and you can see you pay the top tier quarterback. Luck's not a top tier quarterback, but in Jim Irsay's mind he is. Then you pay the offense. Hopefully he papers over the deficiencies of the defense, and that's how you get to the playoffs. Same thing we did with Peyton. So I wasn't surprised at all when we paid him. My issue is that formula didn't seem to work when Peyton was there, and Peyton is far superior to what Luck is now. As a Colts fan, Luck is overrated. I mean, there's really no other way to say that. His best season was the season before last, when he led the league in passing attempts, 4,761 yards, 40 TDs, 16 picks. The 16 picks weren't bad. From what I saw, though, he had about 25 interceptable passes, which is not good at all. So about 9 of them were dropped. The problem is that his greatness or his skill was essentially based on volume, not really efficiency. So if he's not putting up the volume, he's not really doing a lot to help the team. Yes, the supporting cast is not that good around him, I would agree with that. The only really good player on the offensive line is Costanzo. We can't get holes in the running game for Gore, who's aging. We struck out there. Gore was okay last year. Andre Johnson was a bust. But now that we paid him all of this money, there's no way that we can build around the fringes. And the way that we draft players, we still are not good at drafting players. None. We cannot draft players, and that's how you get essentially, I hate to say this, but cheap labor. You get your good players, you develop them until you can't pay them anymore because they're too good. But we're just not good at the draft. So the problem with us paying him that much money, we're already bad at drafting, but that just puts more pressure on us to get hits. And as we've seen, we had the last probably good draft pick that was Dante Moncrief, and he's slow developing, but you can see that the skill is there. But other than that, we're not doing good. We're not doing good, and this contract is going to handicap us. Y'all talked about the division. I'm not a big believer in the Jags. Blake Bortles' accuracy is like Eli Manning's QB vision cone. It's about this small. I can't. His wide receivers have wide catch radiuses, so I'm not a big believer in Blake. But that defense, if Gus Bradley get them right, I'm a full believer in that defense. Dante's coming back, so I'm a full believer in that. Mariota's going to get his game together, so I believe that. Lentz mentioned Dorian Green-Beckham. He's definitely on the come up, and the Texans have a good defense. They got Nuke. Now they got Brock, for whatever that's worth, but everybody's on the come up. We can't just depend on winning the division anymore to get in the playoffs. We have to do real work to do it, and the way that our team is set up, that's not a guarantee right now.
One thing that I want to talk about that you touched on is how the market sets the demand, sets the pay for the quarterback. I really kind of hate that. And he's not the best, source for anything. But I really like what Gilbert Arenas said about this whole topic. These days, the teams come with these contracts assuming this is what they have to pay to keep a guy. When Gilbert Arenas got his $100 million contract years and years and years ago, he himself didn't feel like he was a $100 million guy. He said he thought he was going to get $85 million at most, which to me means that was what he was expecting. That's what he would have been fine with. So he said, who am I to tell this team I'm not worth that extra $20 million if they feel like I am? So he took it. And you can't be mad at him. Like Lynch said earlier, you can't be mad at a guy taking that money and feeding his family. But I always have to wonder, if you come, with that same range, if you come to Andrew Luck and offer him $20 million total less, does he turn it down? If you go to Joe Flacco and offer him $20 million less than what they got, does he turn it down? If you go to Russell Wilson, so on and so forth. I don't know that these guys, and I'm not saying, I guess I am saying you lowball a guy, but I'm not saying that you try to offer him pennies on a dollar, but at the same time, is it necessary for every quarterback who gets re-signed to be the highest paid quarterback in the league every year? Every time we get a new quarterback at a deal, he's the highest paid quarterback in NFL history. That's been the case for the last, 6 years, something like that? That doesn't have to be. If you can get a guy who's just cool with getting paid as your star quarterback, what's the difference in him making $85 million over 6 years and $105 million over 6 years if he's still making a lot of money? $85 million is a lot of money. And that $20 million really saves you $5 million more dollars on the cap each season, $4 million, whatever the case may be. And that helps. And teams need that, to me. So I've never been a big fan of letting the market dictate what a guy's worth as opposed to letting his play dictate what a guy's worth. Right now, as most people probably know, I'm a Redskins fan. If we come out next year and pay Kirk Cousins more than what Andrew Luck is getting paid right now, I'm going to be pissed because he's not worth it. And I don't care what the market says.
And I agree with that to a point, because essentially what they're doing, these owners are doing, they're paying guys because they're afraid another owner might pay this guy. When both of those owners know that the guy isn't worth it, but just to get a leg up on the other guy, I'm gonna spend more money than I actually have to. Like, I feel like if the owners were smart enough, they could get together and they would be able to dictate things like these agents are doing. These agents are getting together. Hey, I'm gonna try to get my guy this amount of money. You try to get him. You say that you're putting out this much, and we're saying, you know, he can't get 10. Like, who was it? Tyler Johnson for Miami. That's his name. Who got $12 million when nobody in the world thought he was worth $12 million? Like, agents can dictate that. These owners would be like, you know what? I'm a Broncos fan. For those who don't know, if people were acting like John Elway and say, okay, Brock is good. He's not $72 million good. So if you want to give him $72 million, you can give it to him. He's not worth it. Now, in the end, he might be worth $72 million, but I have no problem with him taking that type of stance, saying I'm not going to pay an exorbitant amount of money for a guy that we don't know about. Like Matt Flynn playing, 2 games and getting crazy contracts? Like, stuff like that. They need to be saved for themselves, but then on the back end, they get mad at these players saying, oh, they want to take all this money. Well, if you're going to give it out, take it. So I agree with that point, Alan.
Yeah, I think Matt Flynn is one of those perfect examples there.